Welcome to the Elvis Showroom. My name is Rob Neckage. I'm the president of the Always Elvis fan club. We're here this evening to talk about Elvis, his legacy, and today we have a gentleman that performed with Elvis on stage, did some recordings with him as well, from Nashville, Tennessee. We welcome Larry Strickland from J.D Sumner and the Stamps Quartet. Larry?
Hey, Rob. Yes. How are you, Rob?
Good evening. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm glad to be here.
Well, as you know, it's August, the week of August, and fans typically are heading out to Memphis, Tennessee to, join in the Elvis festivities. But with the world the way it is at the moment, fans have a little more challenging getting out. So we're glad that we can bring them together here with a discussion with different folks like yourself.
Yeah, we were, man, what a disappointment not being able to go to Memphis. We were all geared up, ready to go. And of course, my wife and I love going over there every year and meeting the fans. That not being able to do that this year was just so disappointing.
Yeah, that's one of the things, with the situation we're in, the fans just, that was their time, right, to get together with that and meet folks like yourself and just share in obviously the legacy of Elvis Presley. But we're here to send them some information virtually, and we're glad that you can share some of your information with your time with Elvis and in general your career as a gospel singer. So
yes,
but
yes.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just saying yes. I'll be happy to talk about any and all of that.
Wonderful. So Larry, Elvis liked a lot of different gospel music quartets. What got you into gospel music, and if obviously the folks hearing you got that nice bass voice, what brought you into the musician gospel era?
Well, the big thing was I grew up in a preacher's home, a pastor's home. My dad was a minister, and he loved gospel music. And of course, back in those days, this was in the mid '40s. There wasn't a whole lot of live music to go listen to, but he loved to go listen to the gospel quartets. And when I was about 12 years old or so, he took me to my first live gospel concert, and I think it was the Blackwood Brothers and the Statesmen, a couple of those. And I'm telling you, man, when that sound came off of that stage, that 4-part harmony, it just went all through me, and I could never shake it. It was, I knew immediately that it was something that I needed to do or was going to do. And so I started going to as many concerts as I could with my dad, of course. I was too young to go anywhere else. And I got a handful of records from these guys, the big LPs, bought me a little stereo, and I started listening to that music. I would listen to it every day. I mean, it wasn't just like here and there, it was, I was on a mission, even at that age. When I would come home from school, I'd go into my bedroom and I'd turn that music on, and for hours I would stand there and sing with it and teach myself to sing the bass part. And of course, listening to it that much and then just loving it that much. I was, I guess, pretty much destined to be a part of it in some way. And so I started singing when I was about 16 or 17. Searched around town. I lived in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I don't remember how I met these people. But there was a couple of people that were looking to put together a group that I found out about, and I went over and sang with them, and we formed a group and then started traveling around North Carolina, uh, singing wherever we could, in churches or festivals or just anywhere like that. And then I continued just going from one group to another, and singing till I finally I had to go in the military. I spent 4 years in the Army, and most of that time was spent over in Germany and Frankfurt. So I didn't get to do much singing then. Um, there was none of it going on over there, and so um, I was without it for several years. But then when I came back to the States, the first thing I did was find a group and got into another group and started touring. And we toured North Carolina and South Carolina mainly, just in a regional group. But we sang a lot. We were singing almost every weekend, and that's how I got in it.
Yeah. So, you said you listened to the records. Were you vocally trained? Did you have training, or was it just something that a natural gift?
No, yeah, I guess it was a gift. I had no training. I taught myself. I
Okay.
taught myself to listen to the bass part and the other harmonies, and it was all self-taught.
Now, being in a quartet, I think what most people are drawn is just the wonderful harmonies. Did you find that when you started to sing with the others in your group, or when I was talking about early on when you're learning, uh, is it really a challenge to figure out where your place is in a group of four?
It's not really, because each one of those parts in a quartet are pretty well defined. The bass part's on the bottom, then you got a baritone part that's slightly above the bass, and then there's the lead or the melody singer, and then there's a tenor which sings a third part above him, and those harmony parts are pretty well set, and once you learn how to hear that and to follow. But the bass part was pretty easy to sing because, as long as I followed the bass guitar,
Right.
I'm singing the right part, So that was the easy part about the bass singing.
Right. Now, so you toured locally. You said down south. Was this several years? Where did you go from actually singing locally, regionally to I guess more of a. Was that professionally done? Were you doing other work, or was this on the side, or?
Yeah, I was doing other work.
Mm-hmm.
I had worked in computers in the military in the Army, and so I continued that when I got out. I was working with the Employment Security Commission of North Carolina. I had a state job, which was a good job.
Mm-hmm.
But then every weekend, and we were on the road traveling and singing. And then one day, this was probably in 1969 or so, 68. We were doing a concert this was in Fayetteville, North Carolina, singing at a church, and they had brought in a professional group to be the main act, and we were just the opening act. And that group happened to be J.D. Sumner and the Stamps Quartet that we opened the program for. And after the program, Ed Enoch, who was the lead singer, I'm sure you know that name.
Sure. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Ed came up to me and asked for my phone number. He said, you never know when we might need somebody. So I gave him my phone number. But it was 5 years later. He carried my number in his billfold for 5 years. And they had, at the time, Richard Sturban was singing bass with him.
Sure. Yeah.
And Richard got hired by the Oak Ridge Boys, and so that put the Stamps in need of a bass singer. And they called me. Ed called me in North Carolina. I was at work one day, and called me there, and I immediately came out to Nashville and auditioned and got the job, and went back to North Carolina and packed up all my stuff and then came back and hit the road.
So as a bass singer, is the audition to see how low you can go? You had J.D. Sumner there, so that was a challenge there, right?
Oh yeah, no, they weren't concerned. It was more about the blend and being able to
Hmm.
hear the parts.
Sure.
But yeah, they didn't need me to sing low because JD could. JD was one of the lowest bass singers in the world.
Hmm.
He's in the Guinness Book of World Records as having hit a lowest human note that a human can sing. And so anything I would sing, he would sing an octave under me.
Hmm.
So it would kind of make it sound like I was more of a baritone singer than a bass singer. Um, but that was part of our gospel program. I would do a song that had some bass lines in it, and I would sing them, and then JD would come behind me and sing those same lines an octave under me,
Right.
kind of make it look like I was a wimp. I really wasn't doing the job. But so you really couldn't have much of an ego
Hmm.
in that gig because anything I did, JD was going to sing lower and lower, bigger, and a bigger
Hmm.
sound.
So,
But
so, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. I'm good.
No, I was going to say, so were you in Nashville at the time they called you, or were you in,
No, I was still in North
oh,
Carolina.
you're in North Carolina? Okay.
Yeah.
So did you end up moving to Nashville at that point, or just stay where you
I
were? And
did.
oh, you did.
Yeah, I made it. Well, I had to, because in those days, the gospel groups, when they hit the road, they were traveling all the time. And then when Elvis wasn't touring, the Stamps would go out and do gospel concerts on our own. So between Elvis and our own concerts, we were just on the road all the time. So, um, I had to move, even if the gig hadn't lasted but a few months. I still had to move here.
Yeah, I always wondered. Elvis did his engagements in Las Vegas, and then he did some touring. I was always curious how much work you guys had, but JD and those guys kept you guys going pretty good then.
Oh man, we 250 days a year, on the road at least.
Hmm.
Um, and most of those are working every night
Yeah.
somewhere. Yeah.
So prior to you getting obviously on with the Stamps, and as far as Elvis, was he in your repertoire? You're a gospel guy. Elvis did perform gospel albums himself. So were you a fan of Elvis's at the time? Where were you on the Elvis connection prior to working for him?
Yeah, that's a good question because I was so eat up with the gospel quartet thing. I knew Elvis and I was familiar with his hits, obviously, but it wasn't like I was a big follower. I mainly just was into the gospel thing, working churches every night, and that was my life. And that was what I was focused on 90% of the time,
Yeah,
musically.
we got questions coming in. Somebody was asking, Sarah was asking, what part of North Carolina were you from? She must be from down south and wanted to know.
Yeah, Raleigh mainly. I was born and raised in Raleigh, and then my dad pastored some churches in out the outlying areas, some small towns. And my family were all from Johnson County, North Carolina, which is the next county away from Wake County, the Raleigh's county. So we never got too far away from Raleigh at any one time.
So you now become a member of the Stamps Quartet. Obviously, you had been singing with quartet music, and to be with that group, obviously they saw your talent, even though they didn't get you till 5 years later.
Mhm.
So, what was the first connection with Elvis? Were you in rehearsals to do something? Were you on tour? What happened next?
Well, my first gig with him was in Las Vegas,
Okay.
and man, you talk about a head spinner. I'd never been to Vegas before. I was unaware totally of what that was going to be about.
Hmm.
Um, and then to meet Elvis out there and do those shows and having that be the first place to do it, that was quite an experience. But I'm sure some of the folks listening has heard because I've told this story several times on other interviews and things. But my first meeting with Elvis was not the greatest thing that ever happened to me.
Okay.
They called the rehearsal. This was the first day that we had gotten to Vegas, so I'm still head spinning just from seeing the place, the lights and sounds and all that. And they call a rehearsal, and so they tell me where to be at what time and this kind of thing. And I show up. It was upstairs in the Hilton. There's a big banquet room up at the top floor, and that was where they were going to hold the rehearsal. Well, in this particular time, this was 1974, and one of the things going on fashion-wise with younger people, especially, was bib overalls. Guys and girls wearing bib overalls. It was like a fad.
Right. Sort of like you're talking about, like the jean thing, right?
Yeah, with the bib, and the straps over it, and yeah, girls, but particularly girls were wearing them all the time, a lot. No, I won't say all the time, but a lot. And I'm sure if some of the people listening can remember seeing that. Well, I've had me a pair of those overalls, and that's what I was wearing in Las Vegas. I had those overalls on, and I wore them to the rehearsal. And when Elvis came in, of course, I'm intimidated and scared to death, when he walks in the room, because it's, when the atmosphere really changes when he comes in with his bodyguards and everything else. It's a whole different place. So he's going around, he's hugging everybody and saying, glad to see you, and this kind of thing. Hadn't seen him in a while. And he finally comes over to where I'm standing with the Stamps and J.D., and they're hugging and slapping each other on the back and laughing and carrying on. And then finally Ed says, I want to introduce you to our new bass singer. And Elvis looked at me. I put my hand out. He shook my hand. And then he put his hand on Ed's shoulder and pulled Ed away about, not more than a couple of feet away from where I was. I could still hear everything he said. He goes, Ed, where in the hell did you get the blank farmer? Mm-hmm. And I heard him say all this.
Oh, my.
Oh, and so, that just scared me, man. I just thought, wow, I have made the wrong impression in this place. And I thought, sure, that I'd be on the next plane out of there the next morning. And then Elvis went around the room. He went over to the suites and the band members and stuff, and pointing me out. And they were, of course, Elvis was laughing. He was just having a big time. So everybody was laughing. I was a laughing stock of the whole entourage, because everybody was laughing at the farmer, with the overalls on. So that was not a pleasant time for me. But Elvis wasn't. But what they didn't tell me, and I guess nobody thought to tell me that, was that he really didn't like any type of blue jeans. Nobody was allowed to wear any blue jeans on stage, ever. Mm-hmm. And of course, I guess nobody had ever considered the whole idea about the bib overalls. But if you remember some of the photos, of seeing Elvis as a little child,
sure,
he's wearing those overalls. That's what I'm making this up, but I'm thinking that was in a lot of poverty, really poor, and I'm sure he had said to himself, I'll never wear those things again, when I can have something else, and I don't want it around me. Well, I didn't know that, I had no clue. So he really didn't like the overalls. So it was kind of a whole lot of mixed emotions going on there.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. No, just the new guy coming in there, right? And your expectations.
Oh, yeah. Oh man, yeah. And so then the next night, is our first show, and this will be my first time. So I'm still rattled from the whole overall thing, and I'm trying to watch and listen to the show and learn my part, standing next to JD and hearing the whole thing. But But that was a mind blower as well, because I'd never been on a stage, with that kind of orchestra, a huge orchestra like that, and then all the background singers, we were all together, and that sound, and the audience is screaming. I'd never been in an audience, around an audience, with people screaming like that, just going crazy. So my mind was just totally shattered, man. I'm sure I just stood there all night with my mouth open. I probably didn't sing a note.
Yeah, one of the commenters said, well, because you were from the South and a country boy meets Sin City, so right, good comment
Exactly.
there.
Exactly.
You know,
They should have said preacher's kid meets Sin City.
but so obviously, an interesting first meeting. After that, did you settle in and uh,
I, I did. I was concentrating on the show, and I was just happy that they hadn't sent me home. That I was going to at least have some kind of a shot to learn the show and maybe work myself in. And then it was a few nights. It was on that same tour. A few nights after the show. It's when Elvis had the big plane. Lise Marie. Um, he wanted to go out to the plane after the show because he's always looking for something to do in the middle of the night like that. And so he wanted everybody to come out and sit with him on the plane. We didn't go anywhere. We just sat on the tarmac, and sat and hung out in the plane. And I'm sitting up at the front, just trying to keep a low profile. I'm really not going around him and trying to be one of the guys. I'm just trying to really, really not be seen too much. Um, but then at some point, while he's sitting on the plane, he's at the back of the. I don't know if you've been on that plane, but there
sure,
was,
yeah,
it still is, but a big conference table thing uh, in the back section. I
yep,
guess it's still there.
yep,
And he was sitting at the one end of it, at the head, and looking up toward the front of the plane where I was sitting. And he finally, in front of all the entourage and everybody that had laughed at me before, he said, "Hey, Larry, man, you're doing a good job. Welcome. I just want to make you feel welcome," or something like that. I don't remember
hmm
exactly what it said, but he kind of redeemed himself and welcomed me into the group in front of everybody. And so from then on, I was able to settle down and settle in and feel like I belonged.
yeah. Well, like you said, you were at first you're starstruck and yeah, on a big plane like that, and it was great that
Yeah.
Elvis recognized you. So
I never got over the starstruck thing. I mean, anytime he came on stage or came into the room where I was, you get bug eyed and you just go, "That's Elvis." That's Elvis there. It's never like just, or it wasn't for me,
hmm
of just settling down that much and not being totally aware that I was, in his presence.
right. So you started off in Vegas in '74. One of the folks online was asking, how did you rehearse a lot with Elvis? Was at that time was he rehearsing very much, or was it just
Never.
show after show?
That first rehearsal that I was in, that's the only time we ever rehearsed anything.
Wow.
From then on, there was no more rehearsing. Even when we were uh, recorded, the songs, and when we were recording in the Jungle Room at Graceland, it wasn't like we did a lot of rehearsing and then they turned the machine on and recorded. It was we'd worked our parts out among ourselves, among the backup singers, and then would run it a couple of times and then record it.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a whole lot of just digging in and rehearsing note by note.
Yeah. So the first rehearsal that you had in '74 when you came in, was that just coincidence, or was it because they knew that you were new and that's why they did it, or
No, they didn't do it for me. No,
no?
that tour, they had been, for some reason, and I don't remember why, but there had been several months since they had all been together. And of course, I think there was a couple of songs, new songs that Elvis wanted to put into the Vegas show. And so that's why they call the rehearsal to run those songs for Vegas.
Yeah. One of the folks online is saying that he thinks that was August 16th, 1974. So said that they think that was they rehearsed that, or did they tape that rehearsal? He's saying that they might have taped it.
I don't know if they ever taped it. I don't know if they did or not, but that sounds right.
Mm-hmm.
I never even thought about it. I couldn't remember what the exact date was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well,
but I do remember it being very hot in Vegas. I'd never felt any heat like that before in my life.
Yeah.
So,
well, especially August. It's 100 and some degrees, right?
Yeah.
In the shade. But we're gonna, as we're talking here, we're gonna show a few photos of you with Elvis on stage. Got one up. I know you can't see this, Larry, but it's just a picture of Elvis with the Sweet Inspiration in the front, and you guys in the back. You're in the back right. So just so the fans can kind of see you with Elvis back in the day. So not much rehearsals. You're in Vegas in August, and then you toured. So were you part of the Memphis show in '74? I guess no, that would have been in May. So you would have been if you would have come in the summertime. How was touring compared to Vegas? Which did you prefer?
I liked all of it. Vegas was easier for us. I know it was more boring for Elvis because he couldn't get out, like we could in the daytime. We would be out at the pool and in the casino and meet and greet people and whatever, So and having everybody in that one place, and the people would come from all over the world to the Hilton Hotel, and so it was just a lot of fun and easy because we didn't travel every day. We would just do have all that time to ourselves, in the daytime.
Yeah, so on tour you're traveling, but at Vegas you got a little downtime, I guess is what you're saying, right?
Oh yeah, so it was much easier, and it was more fun because the crowds working a room that size, you've got the audience right next to you, and that's always more fun, than when we work the big arenas and 99% of the audience, you hardly even see them because the lights are on you and in your face, and you can only see the first few rows of people.
Right.
Although they did keep unlike a lot of concerts, Elvis loved to see the audience, and they would keep the lights up for him quite often because he liked to be able to see the people.
Right. So my uncle had seen Elvis twice in '75 with my brother, and '76. So that would have been the time that you were there. And yeah, that's one thing he said is the electricity. Even though the concert wasn't happening that day, it could have been in the middle of the day, but just the fact that the Elvis show was on for that month, it was like that town went crazy.
Oh yeah.
Did you feel that same way as a member of his group? Could you feel that electricity?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
From the minute we would be in the car heading toward the hotel from the airport, and we could see that big billboard in the distance with Elvis's name on it and J.D. Sumner and the stamps underneath that, and all that's when the excitement would kick in, and then it was just a fun time, for the next week or more.
Yeah. A friend of mine is a big photo collector. He's got one of the biggest photo collections that I know. Did you take a lot of pictures back in I know you're working, so I know a lot of times people say like, I didn't think of taking a picture. Did you have those kind of memories, taking pictures of the other group?
No, I didn't, because we didn't have cell phones.
Right.
And
yeah.
You didn't walk around not easy to walk around with a camera.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that I kick myself for is not having a camera once in a while, especially in Vegas, and and getting some shots somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
But I didn't have a clue that he was not going to be around, that we were going to lose him.
Sure.
And so it was just no big urgency, for me to have all these pictures.
Yeah.
I'm just really thankful that so many fans have taken the ones from the audience,
Sure.
that you can see me in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm always looking for those. If anybody out there happens to have any photos on stage that's Elvis is in, and that I'm in also, I'd love to have a copy of them.
Well, Larry, I probably can help you out with that. Like I said, this friend of mine has been collecting forever, and he's actually provided some quite a few photos for Sony Legacy, and a lot of the stuff they do. So I'll ask him if he's got any stage photos. He'll come up with something for you, I'm sure.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful. That would be wonderful.
So Elvis loved gospel music. You were a gospel guy. We know that Elvis did a lot of singing after concerts. We know that happened a lot in the early 70s. Did that happen in the time you were there?
It never did.
Never did.
I never got to be a part of that. For whatever reason, he had stopped doing that, and I don't know why. The guys and I would have loved to have been a part of that, but at the same time, the guys, the other Stamps talked about how brutal it was, for them to do the show and then go and be up all night long, to 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, and having to stand around a piano and sing. It was just brutal to have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so looking back on it, I'm sure they're very happy to have gotten to be part of that. But when it was going on, it wasn't too much fun.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's. I think Elvis didn't realize that these guys had worked and you guys rehearsed, and But who's going to tell Elvis no, right?
No, exactly. We worked for him. You do whatever he wanted, but he loved it. He grew up a lot like me in the gospel music that he heard as a child. It got into his soul, and that's part of it. That's a big reason of him turning out the way he did, and going in the direction he did musically, and was the black gospel and the white gospel quartets. He loved all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can just tell he always kept some gospel repertoire in his concerts, right? Even in Vegas,
Every night.
You're in Vegas and
yeah.
you're hearing him sing a gospel song. So
he sang "How Great Thou Art" every night. He had us, the Stamps. He had us come out front at times and sing a cappella, "Sweet Sweet Spirit," which is, and it didn't matter how wild the crowd was or anything. He would make them be quiet for us to sing a cappella, "Sweet Sweet Spirit."
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great stuff.
Yeah.
So Elvis did record an album in '75, which was the Today album, which was done in California. I don't think the Stamps were part of that, but eventually Elvis and RCA, trying to get some records going, they did some recording at his home in Graceland. What people know as the Jungle Room back then was the Den, and you were part of those 2 albums. Am I right?
Yeah.
From Elvis Presley Boulevard and Moody Blue, the recordings that
Yes.
came from '76.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Those were singing in the middle of the night. Elvis did everything at night.
Mm-hmm.
He slept during the daytime, and then the nighttime was whenever he came alive to work or to sing. And so we would go over 8 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock at night, and would wait downstairs, down in the pool room, or the TV, I guess they call it the TV room down there. And we'd sit there until, midnight or latest, because they wanted us to be there whenever he decided he was going to come down to sing. So it was, it was a lot of fun. I mean, because when he came down and when the singing started, when the music kicked in, man, it was awesome to be able to be that involved with him and to it's kind of like we had him all to ourselves. It wasn't an audience. It was just us and him making the music, and
Hmm.
um, that was a very good time.
Yeah. Is it true that there was uh, sometimes there was some wait time till he was ready to come and sing during those sessions that you were there?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There was a lot of waiting,
Hmm.
and then one night, Rob, uh, they had called us to come upstairs into the jungle room. So he thought he was about ready to come down
Hmm.
from his bedroom, and so we're standing around and waiting. And Charlie Hodge comes down, and he says, we're gonna record a little later. He said, right now, Elvis, he's decided that he is going to change out his entire wardrobe. So
Okay.
he's upstairs. He's going through his closet. He's going to throw everything out, and he wants you guys to come up and see if there's anything you all want.
Oh wow.
And so Charlie would take. We went up one at a time because they didn't want a whole gang up there. So just one at a time, we would go up uh, and be with Elvis in his closet, going through his clothes and stuff. And of course, you didn't. I don't know how the other guys handled it, but when it was my turn to go in, I didn't just go looking through the closet and handling stuff. I was like, I just kind of stood there, and Elvis he'd take some clothes off the rack, and he'd kind of hold it up to me, or hang it up, and I'd go, yeah, Elvis, I can wear that. I think that'll be good. I was willing to take whatever he would let me have, but I was acting like I was going to wear it, which I knew I would, something I would never wear. It would be
Hmm.
too valuable for me to wear. So we all left. We all left the recording session that night with arms full of clothes out of his
Wow.
closet.
Is that still in your wardrobe collection? Any of that stuff?
Um, sadly not. I had them. This guy that was opening up a museum in Las Vegas
Okay.
uh, bought them from me, and I bought a nice car
Okay.
with what with what he paid me for them.
Was that Jimmy Velvet?
Um, no,
No. Okay.
I can't remember the guy's name now, and
Okay.
I think maybe the museum is no longer there.
Okay. Yeah, I know Jimmy Velvet. The club had some connections with him over the years, and I know we had a lot of stuff
Yeah.
out there. But what a great story! You know, let's go into Elvis's closet and see what he's got going there. That's pretty interesting. So
Oh, I know. I look back on that, and I wish I'd have been bolder and kind of said, "Yeah, I want this. Give me that, and give me this." I should have been. But it's just not my style, to be that way. I was
yeah.
just
So
letting him.
the Jungle Room. If the fans have been to Graceland, it's a fairly large room for a den, but it's not a very large room for a recording studio with uh, a whole quartet of male singers. I assume the Sweet Inspiration were there as well. Correct.
Everybody was there.
Everyone,
Yeah, Cheryl Nelson and Kathy
Ronnie Tutt's
Westmoreland.
drums and anything like that. So how
Yeah.
did RCA manage to handle all that musicians and all that and get the sound they needed to produce these albums?
That's a huge question because in a normal studio you have everything isolated. Each instrument is isolated, and all the vocals are isolated.
Hmm.
The main vocalist, which was Elvis, he would have been totally isolated, in a booth, so that none of the instruments could come through his mic. The only way he
Right.
would be able to hear the instruments would be through his headphones. And that's how you keep, all the tracks clean without all this bleed over.
Hmm.
Well, we had none of that. And Elvis, at one point, he was uh, using a handheld mic, which you don't do in a studio. You don't hold a microphone,
Right.
but he had a handheld mic, and he'd be walking around the room, And so you can imagine, the engineer that's outside in the truck is just going crazy because one minute he's hearing too much of the background singers because we're all bleeding into Elvis's mic, and then the next minute it's too much drums or too much guitar or
Wow.
whatever. So, and that was the way those sessions went down.
Yeah.
And how in the world the studio here in Nashville that they brought him to that Felton Jarvis, used to mix all that stuff. How they were able to make records out of that stuff and good sounding records.
Right.
I mean, it's not schlock. I mean, it's good stuff. And how they did that, I don't know. It took a long time.
Yeah. So was Elvis? Do you think Elvis was happy with the outcome of it? Did he? Was there a lot of, hey, this doesn't sound right, stop starts, or did he just kind of roll with the flow?
You know what? He was having a big time singing. He would come over and stand with us and sing, and he was having fun doing that. I don't know if and he was kind of to the point where he was just trying to fulfill his contract with RCA.
Okay.
And I wasn't around whenever he heard the outcome or whatever, so I don't know what his feelings were, and I never heard anybody say, but he couldn't have been too displeased with them because they were good. And especially his performances. I'll never forget the night he came downstairs and the first song we did was Hurt.
Okay, yeah.
And you would have thought that he had been singing that song his whole life. And he might have because I've never heard him sing it on stage, but I mean, the minute he opened his mouth, man, it was like, I'm so hurt. And I mean, I think we took 2 takes of that song.
Wow.
Just 2. And they made a record out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, he sang the dog out of it. It was unbelievable.
Yeah. One of the fans is asking, Trish is asking, what kind of attire does Elvis wear going to a recording session in his den? Was he all garbed up still, or?
No, it was more casual looking stuff. It was still Elvis stuff. It was still, stuff that you don't see on the street, but it was more casual, kind of attire, like leisure attire.
Got a question. Somebody was saying that, the fans after 40 some years, you're always wondering, is there a recording that the fans have never heard? And somebody had asked about the song Feelings. Do you know if Elvis ever did Feelings while at the den there?
I remember the song, but I don't remember him doing it there.
Okay. Did you ever hear him sing Feelings? Or, I mean, I don't know of it, but a fan's asking that, so I just thought I'd ask you if you recalled or not.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't remember ever hearing that.
So, how long were you down there? Because he did most of that in, was it 2 sessions in '76, correct? For those recordings, or was it just one whole session?
Well, we were there. I think it was a little more than that. We were there for, it seems like 5 or 6 nights.
Okay.
Of course, we weren't recording every night. We were just there. But it wasn't many. It couldn't have been more than 3 or 4.
Yeah. So, some of the fans, when From Elvis Presley Boulevard came out in '76, I was a young guy, and to me, that was a record that was a new release, right? I was old enough to, my uncle was getting me Elvis records, so I've always had some sentimental thing to that stuff. But you guys, the Stamps, the gals that were singing, and the musicians, Elvis really had a top-notch crew. I mean, he really knew how to pick them, I think.
Yeah. That whole background group was awesome. That the sound that they generated together was just so big and wide. I mean, you could drive a truck through it. It was just a huge sound. And then you add an orchestra and Elvis's voice. It's an unbelievable show. I mean, it's this nobody could duplicate that. I mean, it's not on that level.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it took me so long to learn the show, because I was so in awe and just. But then once I've learned it, then you just so looked forward to every night, to get to perform it, because that it's on this level that you're going to get to perform on.
Mm-hmm.
That you don't get to do every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so the excitement and the pleasure in getting to do that was just to the max.
Wow. So those recording sessions, like you said, he nailed Hurt in a couple takes. Any frustration to the bandmates, Elvis? I mean, did he correct you guys or anybody in the band, or was he just kind of casual? Someone's asking, so I just thought I'd ask.
He was very casual.
Mm-hmm.
That's it's one thing about when Elvis was involved in the music and singing and around the band and the singers and everything. I think he was as happy as he was ever going to be.
Yeah.
Because he was doing what he was meant to do, and he loved it, and he was in great spirits, and he would come over. In fact, at one point, I said something to him during after a song, because he loved bass vocals,
Mm-hmm.
and he would, if you remember in his concerts, on some of his songs, going into a song, he'd do it just to hit the lowest note he could, or end the song that usually would be really a high ending. He would end it down and
Mm-hmm.
hit his lowest notes, and he liked to do that. And there was one song that we were singing, recording, and he was singing the same notes that I was singing, and he was standing real close to me.
Okay.
And he said, "I'm singing your note, Larry. Hope you know that." And I said, "Oh, that's fine." I said, I won't let it mess me up."
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe I said that. I won't let it mess me up, like I was some special. He could sing my note all day long if he wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
But just nervousness or whatever that make you not realize what you're saying at the time.
Sure.
But it was all just a lot of fun. It was a lot of laughing.
Mm-hmm.
And just a lot of enjoyment, and that's probably why the records turned out as well as they did, because we were having fun.
Right. Well, one of the songs from those sessions that was on the Moody Blue album was "Way Down," and it focuses a lot on bass vocals. Obviously, J.D. Had his low bass voice. How did your vocals in that song? How did your vocals come into play there?
Well, I don't know how it. I think JD kind of helped arrange the background singers for that particular song. And then when the choruses come in, the choruses actually start with a way down, da 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 da, the way down, the do da da, the way down, and that's me doing those.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the end of the verse, at the very last one, where it goes really low, that's JD doing
Mm-hmm.
that. So he and I both got to share in doing that song.
Yeah. So now next time, fans, when you go put "Way Down" on your iTunes there and you listen to the bass vocals, and you can kind of see and pick out what Larry just told us about the different portions of the song. Great information, Larry.
Mm.
So you record with Elvis in '76. You're still on tour. TV special is announced. How aware was the group of what this TV special was about? Did you guys really know what was really happening with that?
We knew that it was going to happen, but it really didn't change anything for us. It was like just a normal concert for us.
Mm-hmm.
We just had to do our music.
Right.
So
I'd like to share, Larry, if you don't mind, and just take a minute here. And so we've kind of went through you joining the group, and we talked a little bit about rehearsals, and then Elvis toured like a son of a gun, right, from 76, 77.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, we loved it.
yeah, you loved it.
Anytime there was that meant we were gonna be flying to all our dates, and we're not gonna be in that old bus, trying to get to our gigs, and we're gonna be traveling in style and doing the great shows that we love to do. So
Right,
we would have wished he worked even more,
right. Well, what I want to do is I'm going to show a little segment here from that television special in '77, and we're not going to play the whole thing, but we're going to. I got a little segment of Elvis doing "How Great Thou Art," and I want the fans that are listening to listen to what Elvis loved about gospel quartet singers. He gave you that, in "How Great Thou Art," sing it, fellas, and
Yes.
So we're going to play a little bit of that part, and then there's a little segment of that concert where Elvis is leaving, for "Can't Help Falling in Love," and he passes by the Stamps Quartet, and if you look next to J.D. Sumner, you're going to see Larry there. So let's the fans get to hear what Elvis heard from you boys singing some gospel. We'll be back in a minute. Joy. There we go. We gave the fans a little bit of "How Great Thou Art," and they saw you, a young Larry Strickland next to J.D. Sumner and the Stamps.
With all that long black hair
There you go.
all down in my face and everything. Yeah.
Well, the '70s were that way. Everybody had the long hair, right?
Yeah,
But
I know.
in that segment where Elvis is doing "How Great Thou Art," and you guys do your part where he, sing it, fellows. But at the end of this one particular thing is you can tell Elvis is just trying to give it all he got, and he said about how great. I don't want to sing it, but he did it about 3 or 4 times, and I noticed the whole band has to keep that note. It seems like a little bit longer, right?
Hmm.
While he was doing that.
He did that every night that he sang that song. Though he put as much or more into that song as anything he ever sang.
All right.
He loved it, and he really felt it, and just sang it real hard. It was great to be a part of that.
Yeah. So we all know that Elvis's physical appearance, at 77, we have the footage now, and we can. It's so well documented. But it's like
Hmm.
anything in life when you're living it. Did you notice it, or did it just seem like it was still Elvis? Any kind of feedback on Elvis
Well,
going through that
yeah.
time?
I mean, we'd be off a tour for a month or whatever, and then get back on tour, and then when we would first see him,
Hmm.
would realize that he wasn't himself,
Hmm.
and so yeah, we recognized it. But um, there was only a couple of times though um, when he didn't sing his best,
Hmm.
even though he didn't wasn't looking his best. He was still singing it. He was still Elvis, and so we were trying not to be too scared or upset. I mean,
Hmm.
we were because the music was still there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And if you'd listened to the record, obviously that Elvis in concert came out in October of '77, and I remember playing it, and Elvis just sounded great.
Yeah.
It could be the Elvis fan in me, but he did sound well. um, 76, he also did the concert in Pittsburgh for New Year's Eve. I assume you were part of that show as well.
Yeah, and Pontiac.
Yeah, there was Pontiac, and then there was Pittsburgh. Was another one that he did. Pontiac was in the larger arena, right?
Yeah, Pontiac, Michigan is the one that I really remember
Mm-hmm.
because it was in the they just built that big stadium,
Right.
and so that was interesting and exciting. But the thing about working those big arenas like that, the sound is never good.
Mm-hmm.
You can't see people, you can't see their faces.
Right.
So and then Elvis said, I don't know if were you at one of those shows? Did you go to that one?
I never saw Elvis. No.
It was, they had a big stage built in the middle of the arena,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a 3-tiered stage,
Okay.
kind of like a wedding cake, a big wedding cake, and they actually had steps that come up through the middle of it. That's the way we got on stage.
Okay.
And so on the first tier was the orchestra, and the second tier was backup singers, and then Elvis was on the very top tier. Is where he did most of his performing.
Okay.
And he didn't like it
No.
because one, how he's always going from one side to the other on stage, and he likes to come over. He used to like to come over where we were and sing a little bit, and then he'd go back across, and just he worked the whole stage, and he wasn't able to do that. Plus, he wasn't able to see the people, so it wasn't. It was a great event, because of 68,000 people,
Mm-hmm.
and something that didn't happen very often. But musically and from that standpoint, it wasn't all that. It wasn't great because of those things that I just mentioned.
Right. So, bunch of wonderful memories, right? Concerts,
Oh, yeah.
concerts in Las Vegas, and being in Elvis's home, recording, and traveling with the Stamps and doing all the wonderful things you did. But how did you hear the news of August 16th, 1977, Larry?
I'll never forget that for sure. We were at the airport in Nashville, and the plane was coming from Memphis to pick up all the Nashville contingent of the tour.
Mm-hmm.
And we get a call. We were going to start a tour in Portland, Maine. I think is where was going to be the first date. And so we got a call that the plane was on its way. And then 30 minutes later, we get a call, and Felton Jarvis, who was Elvis's producer, was with us, and he was taking the call. They were calling him for some reason. He took a call, and then Felton says, turns to all of us, standing in the waiting room there. He said, "Hey guys, tour's been canceled. You all go home. We'll tell you more later."
Wow.
And that was it.
They didn't tell you what the reason was?
No.
Oh, okay.
We get in our cars to head home, and I hear it on the radio.
No.
So when I first heard about him passing, I heard it on the radio with everybody else.
Right.
I don't know why they didn't want to tell us. Us. I guess they were, didn't want the word going out all over the place. From different people and get different stories out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I can understand why they didn't just tell all of us at that point. But still, it made it hard, to accept
Mm-hmm.
that I did hear it on the radio like that.
Right. Were you able to attend the funeral? It was pretty chaotic with different people there. Were you able to attend that at all?
Well, we didn't just attend; we sang at the funeral. Mm-hmm. Yeah, in fact, J.D. was in charge of part of it, in getting. I can't even think of the guys, the pastor now, the preacher from Virginia. um, that Elvis loved. J.D. was in charge of getting him to be the
Yeah, I've
to be
lost
the
that too.
one.
Um,
I can't remember his name.
yeah,
Uh,
I think I know what you mean.
but and then we stood. Of course, it's in the living room there, in Graceland, where the funeral was,
Hmm.
and which is small, rather than being in a church of some kind. It's just family and and us, and we're actually standing over behind the casket.
Okay.
And he's laying there in front of us in an open casket for a while, and we're trying to sing. We were singing our gospel stuff that he loved, and I guess he had requested. I don't know if he'd requested that or if just Vernon or whatever was what he knew that he wanted. Or, we were just kind of doing whatever Vernon wanted us to do.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, that was awful.
Yeah.
That was awful, and what a sad time. It was very surreal.
Yeah.
You don't really feel like you're present, or you
Right.
don't feel like you're in your skin. You just kind of your
Disbelief,
mind
right?
is
It's
all over.
it's it's
Just oh yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
we're getting help from the from our watchers. It's Rex Hubbard, Rex Humbard.
Yes, Rex
Yeah,
Humbard.
yeah,
Humbard, yeah.
Humbard. Yeah, thank you. Several people mentioned that. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah. JD had a connection with Rex and was able to call him direct, and they got him to fly in. Um,
so
yeah,
obviously, that changed a lot for those musicians and the people working for Elvis. What became of yourself and the Stamps after Elvis's passing?
you know what? Strangely enough, we became more popular.
Hmm.
For several years after that, we were getting um, gigs all over the place. To come and talk about Elvis and do some of the songs that we did,
Hmm.
in his show, and so we started traveling a whole different circuit ourselves,
Right.
with a band and doing a much bigger show ourselves.
Hmm.
Those people were, they were kind of desperate to kind of cling to
Still
anything
connect.
or
Right.
anybody, that was
Hmm.
connected to him, and so we were working a lot.
Yeah. Well, I happened to see the J.D. Sumner and the Stamps. Like you said, you started working, traveling really around the world, I guess, after Elvis
Hmm.
passed away. And unfortunately, Elvis didn't get to do that. I know there was, a lot of talk that that was something that he wanted to do, but never had an opportunity to do. Right.
I know, yeah.
And but I back in 1978, I lived in Alberta, Canada, and J.D. Sumner and the Stamps. I got to show you something here. See this tribute to Elvis, King of Rock and Roll, and
Hmm.
that magazine. I don't know if you're seeing it on your camera. Larry's seeing a different camera than we are, but it was a tribute concert, and this was in my hometown. The arena held like 17,000. Place was jam packed, and it had the Stamps. JD and the Stamps, and some other gospel and country singers. Here's show you here.
Yeah.
Here's can't tell. I'm getting a light thing there. There he is.
No, I can see it.
JD's
Yeah,
autograph, and then you're just
yeah,
talking about Ed, right?
yeah. And there's Ed Enoch.
Ed Enoch and Enoch, and the Blackwood singers were there. Um, so yeah, so the legacy continued. Continued after that. So I got this in '78, and you were probably there, Larry. Just didn't know
Yeah,
that at
we
the
were.
time.
We were there.
And um, went on to the Stamps kept going for quite a long time, right? So you stayed
Yeah.
with the Stamps till what year?
Uh, till about the middle of '79.
Okay.
I don't remember the the exact time that I left, but me and a couple of other guys in the group decided we were going to break off and start doing more of a country thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually formed a country group called Memphis, and we played clubs all over the country and in Canada. Canada and the United States. We were still working a lot, but just under another name and a little bit different music. We wanted to try to be the next Oak Ridge Boys, So
Okay.
we were doing that kind of a show.
Mm-hmm. So after that time period, you ran across a lovely lady, a redhead, right?
Yeah.
Naomi Judd, right?
Yes.
Tell the fans how that connection happened.
Well, I actually met her while I was still with the Stamps. It was toward the very end of the Stamps.
Okay, so near like 79, 78, 79?
79.
Okay.
And she had gotten a job. Her and Winona and Ashley had just moved to Nashville. Ashley was 11 years old and Winona was 15. And Naomi got a job working in the office of a guy that was our manager, the Stamps manager.
Okay.
And so me and Ed Enoch one day needed to go to the management office, and we walked in the door, and Naomi was sitting at the reception's desk. And so obviously caught my eye. And so something. I'm going to tell this on him. It was a real hot day. It was in the summertime, real hot, and Ed, when we walked in, saw her. I think Ed started wiping sweat. He said, "Man, I'm really sweating out there." And but I wasn't sweating for whatever reason. And Ed says he looked over at me and he said, "I don't know why you don't sweat." He said, "Man, the sweat's pouring off of me." And we turned and walked away, headed back into the manager's office, and I heard Naomi say, "I bet I can make him sweat." I heard her say that. So obviously that was kind of the open door right then, And so it wasn't long after that we started dating.
And now been married for over 30 years. Am I right?
35 years. Yeah, we've
30?
been together.
Oh,
Been
wow.
together 40. Been together 40 years and married 35, something like that. So.
And she's still making you sweat, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So great. So obviously, her and her daughter Winona were a singing duo, country duo, doing great things back in the day. And
Oh yeah.
I understand you helped out with their kind of their managerial stuff. I'm just showing a couple different pictures of them. You picked a beauty there, Larry.
Yeah, I managed them for a little while, which was not the smartest thing I ever did, but
She's not in the room to hear you, is she?
I was just looking to see she did walk through here a minute ago.
Okay.
I should have stuck to singing, but
Yeah.
I wanted to get into management, and so I tried that for a while. But
tell her all the Elvis fans say hello, and she married a pretty nice guy.
Well, thank you. Well, she loves, she goes with me every year to Memphis.
Okay.
And she goes in, she walks through the hotel and meets folks and talks to them, and she really enjoys it. In fact, when the first time she went with me, she was walking through, and this lady came up to her and said, I really think your hotel here is just beautiful. And the lady thought that Naomi was Priscilla.
Oh, really?
Yes, yeah. So that was kind of unique.
Oh, she's now getting Priscilla impersonator. Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Well, it's a wonderful story, and uh, how people connect, right? And through the business, and there you go, right?
No, no,
And
I know.
you've been connecting so for 35 years. So, what's future plans for Larry Strickland? Got anything in the burners?
I do. I just finished recording my very first solo record, if you can imagine that. I've sung my whole life since I was a teenager, but it's always been with a group. Singing the bass part, being
Right.
just the bass singer, and I do a few solos here and there. Bass solos and on those recordings, and I just had never even had a desire really to go out and just do my own record. But then, I had a friend of mine that's a producer, a gospel producer here in Nashville, and he had been after me for a couple of years. Just insistent. He said, "Man, there's no reason why you don't have your own record." And so finally, I just finished recording it just a few months ago, um, mainly because so many of us are, we just lost Ed Hill,
Right. Yeah.
our baritone singer, and that
In July. Yeah.
we're not going to be here forever, and I wanted to put my voice on something, that would be representative of me,
Mm-hmm.
and would kind of so that people would know that I actually can sing and was a was a singer with Elvis. So
Mm-hmm.
um, I wanted to have. I'm calling it legacies. But it's kind of going to be my legacy that I'm going to leave. That has my voice on it, and
Mm-hmm.
I picked some gospel songs, some real old songs that Elvis sang that he liked to sing,
Okay.
uh, and then also I put a couple of other country songs. It's "Long Black Train," the Josh Turner song, and "Lord, I Hope This Day Is Good." Um, I don't know if you ever heard that. "Lord, I Hope This Day Is Good." It's a Don Williams song,
Okay. I don't think I like Don Williams, but I'm not sure if I heard that one.
and so it's just out. And
Yeah.
if anybody's interested in looking at my website, it's LarryStricklandMusic.com, LarryStricklandMusic.com. And they can go on there and they can learn about a little bit about the record, a little bit about my life, and I talk about my first show with Elvis and in Vegas, and kind of what it was like, and my thoughts around that. And there's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of pictures on there to look at with Elvis, and me and my wife Naomi, and
Mm-hmm.
so
When will so this is then it's a 6-song EP, some gospel and some little bit of country flavor. When will this when do you think it'll be out for release?
it's going to be out by the end of next week.
Okay.
But if anybody wanted to get it, they could go ahead and get it, and they'll just we'll have obviously we'll ship it just as soon as
Okay.
we
So
have
you're
it.
doing pre-orders now
Yeah.
at your
Hmm.
website. All right.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So
I think the fans will enjoy hearing that. I can't do the deep voice, so I shouldn't even try. But enjoy hearing your voice, and it's great to know that you're you know you like you said. I have Elvis books all over the place, right? And everybody writes a book. But
yeah.
music is. It seems like it's forever. The book kind of stays on the shelf, but the music kind of it's. People are listening to Elvis '50s music, and we're in 2020, right? And
I know.
for you
Yeah.
to record your own stuff, I think that's going to be great.
Well, and all just about everybody that was part of the Elvis show, they all have their books. They all wrote, books from all different perspectives, and I just never wanted to do that.
Hmm.
Um, but I thought I did. Music was a totally different thing, and I did want to do the recording,
Right.
and
Yeah.
and I'm probably going to do more. I enjoyed the process so much. I'm probably going to probably going to do more now that I've started. I
Right.
really
Okay.
enjoy doing it. And next year I'll probably, when we all show up back in Memphis and we're all together and we do the gospel shows, I'll be doing some of my music, at that time too. So
Great. Yeah, a few of the fans they're chatting amongst themselves. What's the name of the album? They're answering Legacy. So Legacy is the
Legacy.
is the EP album that's coming out, and people are still asking questions, Larry. I don't know if you have a few more minutes to answer a couple or
Sure. Yeah.
sure. So one's asking, please ask Larry about Elvis' vocal range. As a singer, where's Elvis stand in the vocal range department?
He had to at least have uh, over 3 octave range. I mean, it was incredible. Just when you think he's hit his highest note, he goes a few steps above that. And the same
Wow.
thing on his lower end.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that reminds me, it was about the last year that he was living and touring. Um, he started on the song "It's Now or Never." Every night when he would get to the end of that, "It's now or never, my love won't wait," and then he'd drop it, "It's now or never,
Mm-hmm.
my love won't wait."
Mm-hmm.
Well, he would have me do that line.
Okay.
"It's now or never, my love won't wait,"
Mm-hmm.
and he would sing it as far as he could, and then I would get the like the last note of it, and he would always recognize. He would say. He'd turn to me and say, "It's Larry Strickland. He's my alter ego," and then he'd give me credit for singing those couple of notes, every night.
Right. Yeah. I think Elvis used to do that, right? He used to kind of turn to the mic and then you're hitting the note behind him, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting
So
stuff.
he didn't. Yeah, but that's just the kind of guy he was, and he liked, but his vocal range was incredible. That's why his show was so wonderful, man. He could sing hard and loud and high. I mean, it was, and then hit some low notes.
Yeah.
A little bit for everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. I got one more thing here. Obviously, you guys, the Stamps, and some of the other gospel folks got together recently on an album that was done with a couple of tracks that his daughter Lisa Marie did a track on, where No One Stands Alone. How was that experience, getting back into the studio with all those folks?
No, it was fun. We were all together. It was the Stamps and the Imperials. We all went in together
Okay.
and redid all the backgrounds, on several of those songs, and it turned out good. It was fun. I some of it I wish they had, I wish they had have done them the more traditional way. They did try to change them up
A little bit, yeah.
a little bit too much for my taste, but that's just me.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a good job.
Yeah.
I mean, it was they did a good job in the tracks and stuff, and then if anybody has that record, if they listen to "Bosom of Abraham,"
Yep.
that's me doing the I'm going down in the bosom of Abraham, rock my down in the bosom. So that's all me doing all that stuff.
Should have brought your band. We should have just had a concert tonight.
Yeah,
Sounding so good there, Larry.
Could have cranked them up and did a number or two.
Right. So, someone just asked us, "How's your brother Reggie doing?" Somebody must
Oh
know
wow! Somebody knows my brother Reg.
Cindy
he's
Miller.
doing great. Huh?
Somebody named Cindy Miller asked that question.
Oh, Reg is doing great. I was just texting with him a couple of nights ago,
Mm-hmm.
and doing really well.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for asking.
All right. So you fans, if you want to check out Larry's website, LarryStricklandMusic.com, and he's got his new CD. I assume it's a CD, 6 CD track called Legacy, and you can hear Larry doing some solo vocals, great bass vocals, and Cindy just responded, when he was in the second grade, I lived across the street from you. So you can tell your brother Reggie that Cindy Miller lived across the street from you from him in second grade. So
when Reg was in the second grade.
he says when he was in the second grade, I lived across the street from you.
When I
So
was in the second grade.
was it he? She said he. So I don't know if he's referring to your brother or you. So
Wow.
wow.
That name sounds familiar.
Okay.
Her name sounds familiar.
We got the fans asking, how is Naomi doing?
Naomi's doing really well. She's
Great.
doing really well.
She
And
does she sing around the house for you? Does she still sing around the house for you?
No,
No.
not much. You
No.
know, she'll only sing when she sings harmony to Winona. But I can't really can't give any details. But there's going to be some new stuff in the works in the next year or two. So
Oh, okay.
be on the lookout.
All right. Some inside scoop here in the Elvis discussion, right?
Yeah.
Well, Larry, when we started, we said, how much time will we take? And we've been chit-chatting here for an hour and 20 minutes, and we really appreciate your time.
Wow.
Yeah, and the thing is, these people keep asking questions, but it's great, I just enjoyed, hearing the history. I love gospel music. Elvis loved gospel music, and see how you came up in that, in that industry and connected, and meeting J.D. and eventually meeting your wife. Just a great story, and hopefully when the world turns the light back on, we can hear you actually singing those new songs that you're doing. So that'd be a great time. So a bunch of people saying thank you, Larry, for the time and the interview, and from myself and all the fans too. I really appreciate your time. Once again, everybody, stop over to LarryStricklandMusic.com and check out Larry's website. And he's got some photos of Elvis there. You can see the long-haired Larry, right, back in '75.
Yeah.
And
they can ask me. There's a comment section on my website where they can ask me questions there.
Okay.
If they want to. So.
Well, Larry, all your old neighbors are going to be coming now. It's pretty interesting. But Larry, again, thanks for your time. Spending it with us here. We're calling this week Always Elvis Week. We're always thinking about Elvis, and if it wasn't for wonderful people like yourself spending some time with the fans, it gives us a little bit more insight. I learned some new stuff today. I'm going to go listen to Way On Down after this and kind of hear Larry in the first part and J.D. in the second part. So we wish you all the best in your other music endeavors. I'm sure it'll do great. You're just a great guy. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And stay with me here. We're going to just finish up. Larry, again, thank you to the fans out there for all your questions. I know you're saying thank you, and Larry can do the see all those messages. And if you want to, like Larry said, if you want to touch base with him, you can go to his website and send him a message. And tell
the fans that I recognize that if it wasn't for the fans, it wouldn't be me. I wouldn't be sitting here. So
yeah, well, Elvis Connected fans. Your one real quick thing before we go, I just thought of it. You seen the guys when you're doing the No One Stands Alone. Are you still close with any of the other folks from the Stamps? Touch base.
Well, I just talked to Bill Bays just a few days ago, and I talked to J.D Sumner ever so often. Right. And then Terry Blackwood with the Imperials lives probably just a couple of miles from me, so we get to see each other quite often. And he and I stay in touch on Facebook. And great. So I do get to see him. Okay. So what we're going to do, Larry, if you don't mind, we're going to put a little blurb on our website, the Always Elvis Fan Club website, so they can, just in case they want to connect to your website, we can send a link to there. Again, thank you for your time. Yeah, everybody, thank you for joining us today, and thank you for taking care of business and loving Elvis as much as we do. Yes. Yeah.